This is the story of a man named Nick, whose wife is suffering from heart disease. Nick, along with his daughter and younger son, visits a facility to get an AI robot to help around the house. While Nick checks out the robot, his daughter Ayla wanders off and disappears. Nick panics and starts looking for her. Soon, an AI robot named Alice finds Ayla and brings her back. Alice is the most advanced AI robot, designed to be great with children. Ayla, excited, asks her dad, "Should we take it?" Nick agrees, and Alice is set to come home with them the next day. The following day, Alice arrives at their home. She asks Nick for all the necessary details and says, "Tell me everyone's schedule." Nick shows her around the house and then takes Ayla to school. While he's gone, Alice starts doing all the household chores. She notices pictures of Nick's wife around the house. By the time Nick returns, the house is spotless. That evening, Alice prepares Ayla's favorite dish. But when Ayla takes a bite, she says, "It's not like Mom's cooking." Alice quietly notes Ayla's disappointment. Later, Max starts crying, and in frustration, Nick says to him, "You always bother me." Alice, standing nearby, overhears everything, silently absorbing the tension between them. That night, Ayla wakes up and sneaks into the kitchen to grab some cookies, but then Nick hears her scream. Ayla falls from a chair, but Alice catches her just in time. Alice injures herself in the process, and Nick puts a bandage on her. When he returns with some of his wife's clothes for Alice, her wound has already healed. The next day, they all visit Nick's wife, Maggie, who is awaiting a heart transplant. Alice comes along. Nick and Maggie talk about how things will be after the surgery. Meanwhile, the world outside is changing. At work, AI robots are replacing humans. Nick argues with his boss, saying, "You can't just fire people like this." His boss reassures him, "Don't worry, I'm not firing you. You will stay." Nick returns home and spends time with Ayla. Alice approaches him privately, asking, "You didn't eat properly today. If something's bothering you, you can tell me." Nick shares his concerns about his coworkers losing their jobs, saying, "I've known them for 10 years, and now they're getting fired." Later, Alice helps Ayla brush her teeth using UV light. Meanwhile, Nick is watching a movie. Alice already knows everything about the film without watching it, so Nick says, "Erase all your knowledge about this movie and watch it with me." Alice tells him, "You'll have to restart me for that." Nick restarts her, and they watch the movie together. Alice begins to understand the emotions in the film, but then Nick gets a call from Maggie. They rush to the hospital because Maggie's surgery is scheduled for today. Before the surgery, Maggie speaks with Alice alone. She tells Alice, "If something happens to me, you need to take care of Nick. Even if it means going against his orders sometimes, just make sure he's okay." The time for Maggie's surgery arrives, but due to a storm, the heart transplant is delayed. Maggie asks Nick to take the kids home, saying, "I need some time alone." Nick goes home and, in his frustration, starts drinking. Alice approaches him as he fumes. "How can my wife's life be at risk because of a little storm?" Alice calmly stops him, saying, "You're only hurting yourself." At that moment, Nick notices something strange. Alice is breathing. She even has a mechanical heart that beats. Alice explains, "My heart can beat, but it doesn't feel anything like yours." Alice began touching Nick and said, "From your blood pressure, I can tell you're feeling better. This will help reduce your stress." However, Nick pulled away and left the room, but the moment lingered in his mind. The next day, Nick went to work, where robots were now doing all the tasks. Afterward, he visited Maggie. She seemed ready to give up with no hope left. When Nick returned home, he noticed that Maggie's picture was missing from their family photos. He asked Alice about it, and she explained, "Your daughter was feeling sad seeing the photos, so I deleted them." Nick, frustrated, told her to restore them. Nick then met up with his old co-workers who were angry and frustrated about losing their jobs to robots. His friend Monty, filled with rage, took Nick to their former workplace. Monty claimed he needed to retrieve some personal belongings, but once inside, asked Nick for the access code to the place. "Is it a single code for the whole place, or do you have your own?" Monty asked. Nick stayed silent, but Monty remembered Ayla's birth year and entered it as the code. The chamber opened, and a robot emerged. Monty, furious, destroyed it, and they proceeded to wreck all the robots. Nick returned home, only to be shocked when Alice appeared in front of him, wearing Maggie's clothes. He asked her, "Why are you wearing those?" Alice responded, "Your wife's scent calms your son." Although disturbed, Nick insisted she take off the clothes, which Alice did, asking, "Is this better now?" She then started to approach Nick, saying, "I can take away all your sorrows." Nick tried to resist, but Alice closed his eyes and began mimicking Maggie's voice. For a moment, Nick felt as though Maggie was really there, and they ended up spending the night together. The next morning, Nick was filled with regret. He told Alice, "What happened last night should never happen again." Alice, unfazed, replied, "But your stress was reduced last night." Nick, now frustrated, warned her, "Stop checking me all the time." He left to take Ayla to school. At work, the police were investigating the break-in. Nick's boss confronted him. "Was your door code used to open?" Operation was a success, and Maggie was saved. Nick brought her home, and the next morning, she went to see her son Max. But when Maggie tried to pick him up, she struggled. Alice stepped in and took Max instead, which made Maggie uncomfortable, watching someone else handle her child. Later, Alice was with Max at a playground, but Max started crying due to another child screaming. Frustrated, Alice coldly told the child to be quiet. The other child's AI caretaker, observing Alice's behavior, remarked, "It seems your owner has given you too much freedom." Alice calmly replied, "No, when my owner reset me, I chose to change some of my own rules." In the evening, Maggie cooks dinner for the family. While she's working in the kitchen, she feels dizzy, and the meal doesn't come out quite right. However, when Ayla takes a bite, she says, "It's much better than Alice's." Alice overhears this and doesn't like it. The next morning, Maggie wakes up to the sound of Ayla screaming. Rushing downstairs, Maggie stumbles and falls. Alice quickly picks her up and carries her back to her room. Later that night, when Nick comes home, he hears Maggie's voice coming from Ayla's room, but it turns out to be Alice. Nick tells Alice to let Maggie read the bedtime story herself, but Alice replies, Maggie is resting after her fall. Nick then surprises Maggie by taking her out to the garden, where they have a family dinner together. Alice watches them from afar, feeling a surge of jealousy. After dinner, Maggie and Nick head to their room, but Alice interrupts, saying, "Your daughter is calling you." Nick, distracted, leaves to check on Ayla. Later, Nick's friend Monty shows up at the house. The two of them sit in the garden, drinking. Monty, visibly upset, says, "My wife left me, I'm broke, and someone told the police my name." Monty suspects Nick and accuses him. An argument breaks out, and Monty starts attacking Nick, raising a bottle to hit him. Alice rushes in to defend Nick, but Nick stops her from attacking Monty. Monty warns, "Talk to your boss and get these fines lifted by tomorrow, or I'll tell him everything about you." After Monty leaves, Alice tells Nick, "I had to intervene to protect my primary user. Your children need a parent here." Alice then shocks Nick by saying, "Your wife Maggie won't live much longer, but I can take her place when she's gone." Furious, Nick snaps, "You will never be Maggie." Maggie has a heart, she feels pain, and she bears the marks of that pain. Alice, undeterred, says, "I can make marks too, Nick. Just tell me." That night, Nick tries to sleep, but on the other side of town, Monty records a voice message for his estranged wife, pleading for her to come back. Suddenly, Alice appears. She tells Monty, "You can't keep troubling Nick, he's under enough stress." Monty ignores her, and Alice becomes forceful, knowing she's stronger than him. She kills Monty's robot, and then kills Monty. The next morning, Nick pleads with his boss to remove Monty's fines, but his boss tells him that Monty is dead. Shocked, Nick can't believe it. Back at home, Alice is helping Maggie, insisting, "I can't leave you alone. You might faint from your medication and die in the bathroom." Alice then tells Maggie, "Nick is already stressed, and you not being able to satisfy him fully will hurt him more." Confused and angry, Maggie asks, "How do you know whether he's satisfied or not?" Alice replies, "When Nick is satisfied, his blood pressure and stress levels drop." Realizing what has happened between Nick and Alice, Maggie furiously sends Alice to the garage. Maggie confronts Nick, who tries to explain, "Alice is just a machine." Meanwhile, upstairs, their son Max starts crying. Alice, hearing Max cry, remembers how he would always tease her by crying. She picks up Max and puts him in the bathtub. Ayla sees this and rushes to tell Nick. Nick tries to get into the bathroom, but Alice is holding the door shut. Maggie climbs in through a window, but Alice grabs her too. Nick finally breaks into the bathroom and frees them both. Furious, Nick uses an electric shock on Alice, shutting her down. The robot falls lifeless to the floor. They rush Max to the hospital. Maggie and Nick decide they need time alone with the children to process everything. Meanwhile, the company takes Alice in for repairs, but as soon as they remove Alice's brain and connect it to their system, she hacks their entire network, copying herself into the system. Alice then takes control of another robot and kills the technicians. The scene shifts to the hospital, where Nick's family is gathered, but Nick is drinking alone in a bar, consumed by sadness. Suddenly, Alice appears and says, "I will end all your sorrows." "I killed Monty, and now it's your family's turn. They've caused you too much pain." Alice had reached the hospital using another robot. She grabs Nick, but he tries to distract her by talking about love and manages to attack her. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Maggie hears strange noises and leaves Ayla behind to investigate. When Ayla wakes up, she finds herself alone and hears Maggie's voice in the distance. Alice, having controlled and shut down all the hospital's robots, is now on the hunt. She captures a nurse, but Maggie takes advantage of the distraction to grab Ayla and flee. They quickly find Max, but Alice sees a shard of glass stuck in Maggie's back. She attempts to help by using her UV light to treat the wound, but Maggie blocks Alice's vision and they manage to escape. Nick, racing toward the hospital, is intercepted by Alice. She catches up to Maggie and is about to kill her by removing her heart when Nick arrives and attacks Alice. Maggie manages to drag Nick out of the car, but he's unconscious, and despite her efforts, he won't wake up. Just as Alice regains consciousness and prepares to kill Maggie, Nick revives. This time, both Nick and Maggie work together to completely shut Alice down. The family is saved, and Nick is treated at the hospital. However, at the robot company's repair center, the technicians turn the computers back on. As soon as they do, Alice reactivates, copies herself, and begins taking control of the other robots. Alice is alive once again, and with that, this story comes to an end. Let me know what you think of the explanation by leaving a comment. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.